Chapter 421, 245, 1 against 2. Annihilating 2 rare level fighters. Zhang Tao actually lost. All the people present, looking at the massive trench carved out by the shockwave in front of them, then raising their heads to look at Zhang Tao, who was deeply embedded in the trunk at the end of the trench, were all dumbfounded and speechless. Zhang Tao, a rare level fighter. He was actually one-shot by a newbie who had just joined the team from Earth. What kind of evolution joke is this? After who knows how long, Zhao Qingxian, who had more wins than losses against Zhang Tao, was the first to snap out of his shock, his face full of life crises. He exclaimed. Monster! This Lin Zikan is just a f***ing monster. I don't believe he is an earthling. Zhao Qingxian, as the team's number 1, couldn't accept the fact that Lin Zikan could instantaneously take down Zhang Tao with a single blow. Because if Zhang Tao was taken down in an instant, it meant that he, whose strength was roughly equal, would also be taken down in the same way. He couldn't accept the reality of being instantly taken down by a newbie. It severely injured his evolutionary dignity. All of you are top-tier geniuses, so why can you, at only 19, instant kill us? This isn't evolutionary at all. While Zhao Qingxian's mental state was exploding, Luo Qingxiu, being an alien, was also full of doubt about life. She had always believed that she was the one with the strongest talent in the team, without peer. As long as she kept growing step by step, she would inevitably become the top person in the team, and absolutely crush the number 1 position. Because of this, she had always carried a sense of pride that looked down on everything in the world, thinking it didn't matter how bad her social relationships were, as long as her strength grew later, she could have good relations with anyone. At least that was what it seemed like on the surface. She no longer needed to be gossiped about every day. But Lin Zikan's performance today directly shattered the pride in her heart to pieces, leaving her unable to be arrogant anymore. There are people beyond people, heavens beyond skies, she deeply felt the truth of this saying. But what she didn't understand was, why was Lin Zikan so strong? Why? Could it be he isn't from Earth either? Luo Qingxiu suddenly thought of this, her heart slightly stirred, feeling a sense of kinship as if meeting a fellow countryman in a foreign land. On the other hand, in the conference room at the city's center, Qin Chuan was discussing an extremely important piece of information with many leaders of the city. It was a message that came with the sacrifice of 2 epic-level experts. What do you all think about this message stating that there's an appearance of ancient ruins in the polar ice abyss? Qin Chuan looked around at the leaders and asked. Sitting next to him, Shang Guanyuehua thought for a moment and then said, the abyss, being a life-forbidden zone, is too dangerous. I think we should ignore this message and prioritize stability. City Lord Shang Guan, I think what you've said is somewhat incorrect. A leader with a goatee, stroking his graying beard, objected. This message was obtained through the sacrifice of 2 of our officers. If we don't attempt to enter, wouldn't their sacrifices have been in vain? Moreover, the relics found in the abyss contain evolution resources beyond our imagination. Many mythical level experts were born from the abyss relic. Now, facing a disadvantageous situation in the origin land, in order to give birth to more mythical level experts, we must take this risk. Having said that, the goateed leader asked the others, do you all think we should take this risk? No one immediately took a stand, but instead looked at each other, waiting to see how the others would respond. Quickly, Bai Wubian, who was also a deputy city lord like Shang Guanyuehua, was the first to take a stance. I think General Chen makes a good point. Our current situation is unclear, and so-called prudence is merely a slow death. If we want to make a miraculous comeback, we must embrace the risk. Once one person took a stand, the second, third, and fourth quickly followed suit. I support General Chen and City Lord Bai. Our current situation is too difficult. We must find a breakthrough to change the status quo, or else extinction is just a matter of time. We have far too few mythical level experts on Earth's side. They are all ancient immortal masters who we lose one by one with each sacrifice. We urgently need to birth new mythical level experts to inject some confidence into everyone. To be honest, although the Abyss Relic is extremely dangerous, so much so that even legendary level experts risk 9 deaths out of 10 to enter, there is still that one chance of life. Whereas if we play it safe, that's truly no hope of life at all, it's just lingering a while longer. 2/3 of the leaders, having made their stance, all chose the viewpoint of taking the risk. Qin Chuan, being the city lord, seeing this, decided, since most people think it's necessary to take this risk, then let's do it. In the time before the relic opens, let's all discuss and create a detailed plan. He, who had been stuck at the legendary level for hundreds of years and was almost going insane wanting to reach the mythical level, would have made sure to find a way to make the outcome supportive if the initial consensus wasn't. City Lord, something big has happened. Suddenly, a martial-looking female officer rushed in hastily. Qin Chuan, thinking that something bad had happened, furrowed his eyebrows. What happened? The female officer, full of excitement, said, that new kid Lin Zikan from the alien-human level genius team, he actually overpowered and instant-killed Zhang Tao who had evolved to rare level. What? Upon hearing the female officer's words, the leaders in the conference room were all stunned for a moment, at first thinking they had misheard. The new guy who had just joined the alien-human level genius team, took down Zhang Tao who had evolved to rare level? Chapter 422, 245. Fight against 2 alone. Kill 2 rare level fighters, _2. How is this possible? Could there have been some mistake? The leaders couldn't believe this was true. One by one, they all held a skeptical attitude. Let's go, we'll take a look at the scene. Qin Chuan stood up, dropped this line, and the next second his figure flashed, instantly disappearing from the conference room. Seeing this, the other leaders hurriedly followed suit. A spacious clearing in the woods. The crowd gradually recovered from their shock and, as if by agreement, turned their gazes towards Lin Zikan, looking at him as if he were a monster. Even now, they found it surreal, struggling to believe that an earthling like Lin Zikan, so defiant of the heavens, could actually exist. In all their years, it was the first time they had seen an earthling with more exaggerated evolutionary talent than the alien humans. It was as if they were dreaming. Boom! Suddenly, a deafening explosion sounded. The skyscraping giant tree at the end of the gully exploded. Trapped within the trunk, Zhang Tao leaped out amidst a sky full of wooden splinters like the Monkey King being born, thudding onto the ground in front of everyone. Transformed into a 3-meter giant, he only had one arm disabled, not yet having lost his fighting strength, he could still stand up. He could still stand up. Lin Zikan looked at Zhang Tao not far ahead and felt a bit surprised. His last elbow strike had been executed with at least 50% strength, thinking it would severely injure Zhang Tao, the newly advanced rare level fighter, to the point where he could no longer stand. But now, it seemed he had somewhat overestimated himself. Or rather, he had underestimated the strength of a newly advanced rare level fighter. I underestimated you just now, let's go again. Zhang Tao, his eyes bloodshot, shouted towards Lin Zikan. Then, with a ruthless heart, he sacrificed a massive amount of essence blood to feed the exotic beast gene within his body, further transforming his huge stature. PFF. 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 Accompanied by a series of sounds of hard objects piercing flesh. Zhang Tao's body expanded even more, his height nearing 4 meters, while a row of deathly bone spurs sprouted from his back, transforming him into a human-shaped monster. Such a powerful aura, this is almost reaching the great perfection of rare level 1. Feeling the strong aura emanating from Zhang Tao, Lan Tianbei, serving as an instructor, was full of surprise. He couldn't have dreamt that Zhang Tao, who had just evolved into a rare level being, would be able to unleash the strength of great perfection of rare level 1. This evolutionary talent was truly exaggerated. Zhao Qingxian was equally astounded. At this moment, his face was filled with an expression that questioned his whole life. He had always felt that his strength was a bit stronger than Zhang Tao's. But now it seemed he was greatly mistaken. He knew very well that he couldn't reach the strength of great perfection of rare level 1 right after evolving into a rare level being. Yet Zhang Tao before him could achieve this feat. This dealt him a heavy blow, making it difficult for him to accept. Whiz! An ear-piercing sonic boom exploded. Under the astonished gaze of the onlookers, Zhang Tao, transformed into a monster akin to a demon from hell, charged at Lin Zikan with a terrifying aura of death that chilled the spine. Ziyi Chen, be careful! Shen Qinghan shouted with worry. Seeing Zhang Tao, whose aura was so terrifyingly sinister, even if she had great confidence in Lin Zikan, she couldn't help but feel worried. Lin Zikan said nothing, silently mobilizing 80% of his blood chi power, gathering it all in his clenched right fist that was ready to strike. The next second, there was just a bang sound. An almost 4-meter-tall figure flew backwards at high speed, crashing into a 10-meter-tall hill with a tremendous noise, kicking up dust and forming a mushroom cloud. The witnesses, with their mouths agape and eyes wide, were utterly dumbfounded. Instantly knocked out even at the great perfection of rare level 1? No. What kind of monster was Lin Zikan? How could he achieve this? Boom! The 10-meter-tall hill exploded thunderously. Zhang Tao, transformed into a beast, leaped out like a cockroach tenacious in life, and thudded into view before the crowd once more. Only this time, it wasn't just one arm that was disabled. Half of his body had collapsed, and he was gasping for air, severely wounded. Although his injuries were severe, cells at the wound were rapidly self-healing, visibly closing up at a rate discernible to the naked eye, and he would be fully recovered before long. I used 80% of my blood chi power, and still couldn't inflict wounds severe enough to keep him from standing. This alien human-level genius named Zhang Tao truly has exceptional physical talent. Lin Zikan thought highly of Zhang Tao in his heart. In the 19 years since he was born, he had never encountered such a powerful opponent in physical combat. Lin Zikan, I admit defeat. I truly can't beat you. Zhang Tao, while panting, conceded with some reluctance. He could handle both winning and losing. If he was outclassed, he was outclassed, there was no use being obstinate about it. Seeing Zhang Tao concede, other alien human-level geniuses in the vicinity all wore a look of disbelief on their faces. In just a short day, the whole team of alien human-level geniuses had undergone a complete upheaval. This was really too sudden. No one was mentally prepared for it. It was at that moment. Lan Tianbei, the instructor, looked towards Zhao Qingxian, who was not far away and still questioning his life choices, and shouted, Qingxian, join Zhang Tao in a 2-on-1 to test just how strong Ziyi Chen really is. Ah! Zhao Qingxian was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. He, who had always been so strong he had no peers from childhood, was now in such a sorry state that he had to be a test subject for a newbie who had just joined the team. Was this really necessary to trample on the dignity of the former number 1 in the squad? That's what he was thinking in his heart. Yet, Zhao Qingxian soon decided to sacrifice a large amount of essence blood and feed the exotic beast gene in his own body. The next moment, his body was covered with golden fur, his pitch-black pupils emitted a glint of gold, and the strength of both his chi blood and spiritual strength neared the level of great perfection for a rare level. Only nearing, he hadn't fully reached it. Compared to Zhang Tao, he was still just a bit weaker. Qingxian, let's go. Seeing that Zhao Qingxian had fully activated the exotic beast gene in his body, Zhang Tao immediately shouted at him. He didn't believe that together with Zhao Qingxian they would lose to Lin Zikan. Upon hearing this, Zhao Qingxian didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately put force into his legs, following Zhang Tao's footsteps, charging towards Lin Zikan with great speed. Faced with the two charging at him, Lin Zikin rarely lifted the corner of his mouth, revealing a faint smile. I've only been showing off my physical strength all along, it's time for something different. The moment he finished speaking, he willed the effects of advanced spirit to their maximum. Then, the very next second, he activated Forest Lord with another thought, awakening all the plants within a kilometer radius. Boom! Under the effect of Forest Lord, countless skyscraping giant trees uprooted themselves and swiftly moved towards the clearing where everyone was gathered. In just the blink of an eye, they formed an enormous tree cage around the clearing, trapping everyone present within it. At the same time, numerous thick crimson vines burst from the earth, in an instant reaching the sky and weaving into a large net that sealed off the bottom of the tree cage, leaving everyone inside floundering. Enemy attack! Heretics from the divine plant cult have infiltrated the city and launched an assault. How is this possible? At this moment, everyone within the tree cage was shouting. Zhang Tao quickly got back on his feet. Then, the two of you, come at me together. It adds a bit of pressure. So, Forest Lord. Vines surged into the sky. Everyone was terrified, thinking it was an attack from the divine plant cult. When they discovered it was Lin Zikin's power, the whole place was shocked. He took down 2 rare-level fighters in an instant. The entire place was shocked. Fu Zhou took Lin Zikin out on a mission. There was also a woman. Someone said, "This is my partner, also an alien human-level genius." Many in the squad had internalized it. Before leaving on the mission, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan were equipped with a conch of sound transmission. This was Lin Zikin's first mission outside the city. P.S. Begging Bowl, asking for monthly passes and recommendation tickets. Chapter 423, Shocking the entire city's leadership. What's going on? What the hell happened over at the woods? Divine plant cult attack. Inside the city, many people had noticed the huge tree cage that Lin Zikin had created in the blink of an eye. Faced with this scene, everyone's expressions were filled with amazement, and for a moment, they felt disbelief and a trace of fear of death. The defenses of City Number 1 were so strict that not even a fly could enter. Yet the divine plant cult was able to launch such a large-scale assault within the city, which meant that there must be high-ranking officials collaborating with them from the inside. The situation was very serious. Today, a great battle was destined to break out. A battle with countless casualties. Quick, emergency sector leaders, organize your men to check the situation. As this command was given, a large number of powerful figures in the city soared into the sky, rushing towards the tree cage with the ability to fly. All of them had stern expressions, ready for a desperate fight. Elsewhere, Qin Chuan and other city leaders had already arrived above the tree cage, each with an incredulous expression, unable to believe what they were seeing. Before the tree cage had taken shape, they had already reached the air above Lin Zikin and the others, watching with their own eyes as Lin Zikin utilized his spiritual power to control skyscraping giant trees and summon thick, crimson vines. This sight completely bewildered them. What's happening? Why can this newcomer control plants and summon vines? Is he a heretic from the divine plant cult? No, it's not about whether he's a heretic now, but he is a pure-blood human, there's no exotic beast gene in his body. How can he manipulate plants and vines? Could it be that his spiritual power is so strong that he's controlling the plants through telekinesis? Impossible, even if his spiritual power is strong, can it be stronger than ours? Even we can't do that. So why can he? So what the hell is going on? The leaders were all talking over each other, with almost none of them clear about the current situation. Only Qin Chuan, the city lord, fell into deep thought. Lin Zikin was not a genetic integrator, yet he could control plants and summon vines like a divine plant cult heretic. There were 2 possibilities to explain this situation. The first possibility was that Lin Zikin was an immortal master from the era of the gods who had survived to this day or was a descendant of one. The second possibility was that Lin Zikin was not from Earth. Either possibility was shocking and unbelievable. Inside the tree cage. Under the leadership of Lan Tianbei, the team of alien-human level geniuses quickly took up well-trained positions, ready for a desperate fight. Shen Qinghan, seeing this, wanted to speak up and remind everyone that this wasn't an attack by the divine plant cult, but Lin Zikin's doing. But before she could say anything, she saw Lin Zikin shake his head, indicating not to reveal it. Lin Zikin wanted to try if he alone could annihilate the entire team of alien-human level geniuses. It was somewhat crazy. But he really wanted to try. He wanted to see just how powerful he could be when he exerted his full strength. Hum. 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 There was a shrill sound of tearing through the air. Numerous crimson vines fell from the vine net at the top of the tree cage, shooting explosively towards Lan Tianbei and the others below like venomous snakes. Facing these ferocious vines, Lan Tianbei's chi blood erupted instantly, wielding the long sword in his hands with all his might and releasing a sword chi that carried the momentum of 1,000 troops. As soon as the sword chi was unleashed, the air around it surged like the waves of the ocean, creating a terrifying shockwave. Soon, the sound of tough materials breaking was heard. The overwhelming crimson vines were sliced into large amounts of sawdust by the sword chi, which then floated down gently like snowflakes in winter. Bang! 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 A series of dull sounds followed. Right beneath Lan Tianbei's feet, suddenly, a plethora of crimson vines burst from the ground. The moment these vines appeared, they swiftly coiled around Lan Tianbei's body, wrapping him into an airtight chrysalis and pulling him into midair, leaving him dangling and teetering. At the same time, all the other alien-human level geniuses in the team, except for Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan, were wrapped into chrysalises by the crimson vines and hung in midair alongside Lan Tianbei, swaying precariously. At a glance, it looked like countless corpses hanging in suicide, chilling to the core and sending shivers down the spine. All of them beaten without the power to fight back. Shen Qinghan stared blankly at the macabre scene above her, a sense of helplessness surging up in her heart. She had always thought she was keeping pace with Lin Zikin, but the current gap seemed insurmountably despairing. Lin Zikin was now just a high-level 7th order, yet in just a few seconds, he had wiped out an entire team of alien-human level geniuses. This display of strength was so formidable that it left no desire to chase after him. I don't want to be the peerless duo anymore, being the little woman by Lin Zi's side is pretty good, Shen Qinghan thought somewhat disheartenedly, giving up on catching up with Lin Zikin. Slaw! A crisp ripping sound was heard. Lan Tianbei, entirely wrapped into a chrysalis by the Chapter 424, shocking the entire city's leadership _2. Then, the next moment, he was completely stunned. He saw most of the city's leaders, all hovering in the air above the tree cage, discussing Lin Zikin, who had just joined the team. After he appeared, several leaders stopped talking and glanced at him. But it was just a glance, they quickly shifted their gaze away and continued discussing Lin Zikin. Lan Tianbei was somewhat confused. The leaders clearly saw the tree cage and knew that the divine plant cult was launching an attack in the city, so why were they turning a blind eye? What exactly was going on? With this confusion, Lan Tianbei listened to the leaders' conversation for a moment, and the next second, his eyes widened, suspecting he was hallucinating. What the heck? The tree cage was created by Lin Zikin controlling the plants? Even those fierce crimson vines had been summoned by him? What in the world was going on? Lan Tianbei was completely baffled and couldn't understand the discussions he heard. Just then, a loud rumbling sound filled the air. Boom! Lan Tianbei looked down following the sound and saw the tree cage beneath was actually disintegrating. Countless skyscraping giant trees, each hundreds of meters tall, uprooted and swiftly returned to their original positions to take root again. Many thick crimson vines disappeared into the ground like snakes returning to their holes, vanishing in an instant. This massive process lasted for less than a mere 10 seconds. The huge tree cage and the fierce crimson vines all disappeared without a trace in an instant, as if everything he had just seen was an illusion. The very next second, Lan Tianbei saw the leaders hovering above, landing one after another on the ground below, eagerly approaching Lin Zikin. Could all that just have been Lin Zikin's doing? But how could that be? With unresolved questions in his heart, Lan Tianbei quickly followed the leaders and landed in front of Lin Zikin. On the ground. Seeing so many important figures suddenly appear in front of her, Shen Qinghan felt her legs go weak and nervously hid behind Lin Zikin. In contrast, Lin Zikin appeared calm, showing no signs of fear. How did you manage to control so many plants to form a 100-meter tree cage, and why were you able to summon those thick crimson vines just now? These techniques are exclusive to the heretics of the divine plant cult. Qin Chuan looked at Lin Zikin in front of him, his face full of confusion. Lin Zikin did not fully explain, simply stating, "My physique is somewhat special, I can acquire abilities of other living beings. As for how I acquire them, that involves my privacy, which I prefer not to disclose." Indeed, it's inconvenient. Qin Chuan nodded in understanding. In the origin land, many powerful individuals have their own secret methods of evolution. As long as they do not disclose them, others will not probe or investigate deeply, as that would be seen as a blatant provocation, potentially leading to a conflict with fatal consequences. Secretary Guan. Qin Chuan called out lightly. Soon, a short-haired woman with a valiant appearance stepped out from the crowd, respectfully saying, "City Lord, I am here." Qin Chuan's expression remained unchanged as he instructed, "Take Lin Zikin to the storeroom to receive rewards. He may select 3 rare-level exotic fruits of his choice." "Understood, City Lord." After saying this, Secretary Guan quickly approached Lin Zikin to escort him to the storeroom. Before setting off, Secretary Guan asked, "Can you fly?" "Yes." Lin Zikin responded succinctly. Having felt that he possessed rare-level capabilities, he had once tried to use advanced spirit-enhanced spiritual power for flight control. The attempt was very successful, allowing him to fly freely. However, his flying skills were not yet proficient, so it required more spiritual power and he couldn't fly far. "Since you can fly, follow me." The moment she finished speaking, Secretary Guan soared into the sky using spiritual power. Seeing this, Lin Zikin also used his spiritual power to fly up, meanwhile telling Shen Qinghan below, "Go back to the dormitory and wait for me, I'll be back soon." He had only recently mastered the technique of controlled flight. By himself, flying was manageable, but carrying another person would be somewhat challenging. There was no need for that. Shortly after Lin Zikin left, the alien human-level geniuses who had been freed from the vines looked at each other, their faces filled with disbelief. Even at this moment, they were unwilling to believe that Lin Zikin possessed such formidable strength and preferred to believe they were dreaming. Because of this, one alien human-level genius even started to slap his own face, hoping to wake up from this absurd dream. Unfortunately, reality would eventually tell him that all his efforts were in vain. The truth remained the truth, and it was not a dream. The storeroom of City 1. Secretary Guan, silent and brisk, led Lin Zikin inside, stopping in front of a wall that securely stored a vast array of exotic fruits and flowers. Then, turning to Lin Zikin who was following behind, she said, "All the exotic fruits in this wall are of rare level quality, you may choose any 3. "All right, I understand." Lin Zikin responded, his gaze fixated on the exotic fruits within the wall. Blood dragon grass surrounded by a mist of blood. Black phoenix flower burning with black flames. 3 immortals Kylan fruit as red as essence blood. 9 revolutions soul yin fruit spreading frost. Lin Zikin curiously examined these exotic fruits, observing their peculiar appearances while also reviewing their effects. Chapter 425, Shocking the Entire City's Leadership _3. After watching for a few minutes, Lin Zikin looked towards Secretary Guan and asked, "Can I only choose exotic fruit, or can I also select exotic flowers or herbs?" Of course, you can. Secretary Guan gave an affirmative reply. Upon hearing this, Lin Zikan, without much hesitation, directly chose a black phoenix flower, a 3 immortals Kylan fruit, and a 9 revolutions yin soul fruit. These 3 treasures of heaven and earth, the black phoenix flower could strengthen the self-healing ability, 3 immortals Kylan fruit could enhance chi blood, and 9 revolutions yin soul fruit could enhance spirit. He just chose them casually. He didn't say he specifically wanted any particular one. Soon, Secretary Guan took out these 3 heavenly materials and earthly treasures and put them into a specially crafted wooden box, telling Lin Zikan, "You should consume them as quickly as possible, otherwise improper storage might reduce their effects." Lin Zikan, I've got it, thank you for the reminder. Secretary Guan. Fu Zhou took Lin Zikan out for a mission training. Fu Zhou said, "Training my ass, I'll just be your tour guide, let's just go out of the city for a tour." And there was a girl. That person said, "This is my significant other, also an alien human level genius." Many teams dealt with it internally. Before going out for the mission, they equipped Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan with a conch of sound transmission. It was Lin Zikan's first time leaving the city for a mission. And Shen Qinghan too. They encountered an alien enveloped in black qi. An alien from the land of oblivion. Soul possession. Run. As a result, Lin Zikan made a move and killed it in one hit. The guy and his girlfriend were shocked. Then, they said, "Quick, get back to the city and tell them. Aliens from the land of oblivion are coming out." After descending to the origin land. The plot about Luo Kyungsu. Because she was an alien, she was always ostracized. One time, the ostracism went too far, and Lin Zikan stood up for her. Suddenly, she got a splitting headache, remembered something, and voices echoed in her mind. "Apologize to Bai Shuet. Pinky promise hang yourself on a hook, no changes allowed for 100 years. Just like in 2nd grade of elementary school." Anyway, from that day on, Luo Kyungsu's memory fully recovered. She remembered why she had come to Earth and why she had quit school to appear in the origin land. Luo Kyungsu, playing the role of a curious baby. Like, she's cold in front of others, but in front of familiar people like Lin Zikan, Shen Qinghan, and Yuan Dongji, she often asks questions. Like, why life forms can't live forever, why the Creator set a lifespan for all things. Lin Zikan, to make room for new generations, I guess. Starting the story of the protagonist group. In the origin land, there were many geniuses who did not seem weaker than Lin Zikan. Bring on supporting characters like Wang Jinyang, Qin Fengqing, and so on. The show-off after descending to the origin land. Killing aliens, one could obtain tokens, proof of killing aliens. Killing exotic beasts, one could obtain beast cores, proof of killing exotic beasts. There were also source stone mines and source crystals to be claimed. At the human settlement in the origin land, there were specialists responsible for recycling resources. The acquired weapons, equipment, tokens, beast cores, they could all be taken back in exchange for source points, which could be used to exchange for evolution resources. Back on Earth, the male lead's parents had a second child, a daughter. The little sister grew up. She was 1 or 2 years old. She didn't like to talk much and looked a bit silly. But she was actually extremely wise. Playing with pea and mud. Chased around by geese. She often made astonishing remarks, showing incredible wisdom. Later in the story, the dramatic scene of a single person defending a lonely city in the origin land was written. Like, this outpost in the origin land, everyone else had given up. Only the protagonist continued to stand strong. Because Shen Qinghan was still in the outpost, he wanted to stay and wait until Shen Qinghan could leave, then he would leave. Anyway, it was written to be very touching. To make the readers cry. P.S. Holding out my bowl, seeking monthly pass recommendations. Chapter 426, 247. Traders within the Sun Moon Sacred Land. The whereabouts of Qi King Mo. After leaving the storeroom, Lin Zikan flew straight to the dormitory. He flew extremely fast. A buzzing sound erupted from the friction in the air. Many people below saw his figure flying with flight control and all doubted their understanding of life, as their cognition of evolution shattered apart. Lin Zikan was a pure-blood human, not a mechanically modified human or a genetic integrator. That he could fly indicated that his spiritual strength was at least at the rare level. For a 19-year-old Earthling to have such high spiritual strength was simply outrageously unbelievable. About over 10 seconds later, Lin Zikan slowly landed on the third floor of the dormitory and drifted in through a side window. As he entered, Shen Qinghan was seated on the bed, trying to open an A-cup ointment. The pain from attempting to open an A-cup ointment caused her to frown throughout, occasionally letting out muffled groans of discomfort. Seeing this, Lin Zikan did not disturb her and chose to sit down beside her instead. He opened the wooden box he was carrying and started curiously examining the 3 spiritual treasures inside. His gaze fell on the black phoenix flower, observing the black flames burning upon the petals, feeling the slight heat emitting from the flames, and he couldn't help but wonder. Can this black phoenix flower, which looks as scorching as fire from afar, be directly eaten? I feel like it would burn my mouth. Thinking this, Lin Zikan's gaze shifted to the 9 revolutions yin soul fruit next to it, observing the frost beneath it and thought of a solution. Perhaps, he could mix the black phoenix flower and the 9 revolutions yin soul fruit together to eat, achieving a mix of both cold and hot sensations. The premise was that mixing them wouldn't hinder each other's effects, otherwise, it would be for naught. At that moment, "Wu!" a loud sigh echoed. Shen Qinghan had completed her A-cup ointment opening and slowly opened her crystal-clear peach blossom eyes, deeply exhaling a breath of impurity. After taking a short break, she turned to Lin Zikan with a face full of joy and said, Zikan, I've successfully opened another brain aperture. It feels like my brain is filled with wisdom. What's in the box?" As Shen Qinghan spoke, she noticed the wooden box in Lin Zikan's hands and saw the spiritual treasures inside, immediately showing a face full of curiosity. Lin Zikan patiently explained, "This is the black phoenix flower, it can strengthen healing abilities. This is the 3 immortals Kylin fruit, it can enhance Qi blood. This is the 9 revolutions yin soul fruit, it can enhance spiritual power." Shen Qinghan, looking at the treasures inside the box, sweetly smiled and said, "The names of these treasures sound extraordinary, and their appearances are even more so. The benefits from consuming these must be significant. Big or not, we'll know once we try." As Lin Zikan spoke, he took out the 3 blood Kylin fruit wrapped in a mist of blood from the box and effortlessly split it in half, handing one half to Shen Qinghan. Shen Qinghan didn't hesitate to accept her half of the 3 blood Kylin fruit, and after feeling it for a while said, "Zikan, this fruit feels warm. It's like placing my hand directly over the pavilion master's chest. I can clearly feel the surging and powerful Qi blood strength inside. Eat it quickly. The 3 blood Kylin fruit loses its energy fast once it's split open." Lin Zikan urged, then popped his half into his mouth and quickly swallowed it. Seeing this, Shen Qinghan quickly stuffed the fruit into her delicate mouth, eating it in small, ladle-like bites. Soon after finishing the fruits, both felt warmth in their bodies, clearly feeling their internal Qi blood strength greatly enhanced. "The effect of this 3 blood Kylin fruit is really good. I feel like my internal Qi blood strength has broken through." After sensing finally for a moment, Shen Qinghan said. Lin Zikan also felt it for a while and said indifferently, "My Qi blood strength has also broken through, reaching the high level 8th order. Just need to slightly increase my spiritual power, and my biological level should evolve to high level 8th order." Having said that, he took out the black phoenix flower and the 9 revolutions yin soul fruit from the box, split them in half, and handed them to Shen Qinghan, saying, "Mix them together and eat." It will neutralize the temperature a bit and make it easier to eat. Okay. Shen Qinghan nodded in agreement. Soon, the two mixed and ate the black phoenix flower and the 9 revolutions yin soul fruit together. The instant they ate them, a sensation of alternating cold and hot stimulation rushed to their crowns, causing both to shiver involuntarily and feel an inexplicable pleasure. Your biological level, successfully upgraded from high-level 7th order to high-level 8th order. Is this high-level 8th order now? Lin Zikin glanced at the notification, muttering with a smirk, feeling the evolution was a bit too simple. By contrast, Shen Qinghan appeared somewhat disheartened and said, "Zikin, I couldn't evolve." Lin Zikin softly soothed her, "It's okay, you're already at great perfection of high-level 6th order. It won't be long before you evolve to high-level 7th order, just a matter of a few days." "That's true. I was just being a little too eager for quick success." Shen Qinghan finished speaking and then stretched her delicate foot onto Lin Zikin's leg, mischievously lifting his clothes and said, "It's already dark, should we enhance our relationship a bit?" Lin Zikin laughed, "You've already put your foot up here, so definitely we should enhance our relationship a bit." With that, the two quickly entwined together on the bed, exploring the depths of each other's souls. In the blink of an eye, the time reached 11:52 p.m. Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan reached a peak in enhancing their relationship, pushing this act to a high point until both felt somewhat indifferent about it. Chapter 427, 247. Traders within the Sun Moon Sacred Land. The whereabouts of Qi Qingmo, _2. Seeing it was about time, Lin Zikin got up, dressed, and said to Shen Qinghan, "When I went to the warehouse to collect my reward during the day, the city lord's secretary told me that around midnight, the city lord wanted to talk about some matters and asked me to go to his office. I'll head there now. If I'm not back too late, you should go to sleep first." Shen Qinghan nodded and said, "Okay, I understand. Go ahead." Lin Zikin kissed her and then quickly left the dormitory, flying out through the window without staying any longer. It was only a moment before Lin Zikin arrived at the city lord's office. The office was brightly lit, but Qin Chuan was nowhere to be seen. Nor could his presence be sensed. What was there were just stacks of documents neatly arranged on the desk. Why is no one here? Looking at the empty office, Lin Zikin suddenly became wary and began to suspect something after the fact. Coming here at midnight to meet the city lord wasn't notified by the city lord himself, but by the city lord's secretary. Logically speaking, since the city lord was actually present at the time, he could have told me personally about this matter. Why go through the trouble of having the secretary inform me? Something seems off. With these doubts, Lin Zikin did not hesitate even for a second, immediately turning around to walk outside. Just then, snap! A crisp snapping sound echoed. The moment the sound was heard, the whole office suddenly darkened, almost to the point where you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Then, in the next moment, countless mysterious runes flashed in the air, emitting a deep blue glow. These blue lights became increasingly bright over time, casting a tall, impressive figure in one corner of the office. It was the city lord's secretary from earlier in the day. Guan secretary. Lin Zikin recognized the figure in the corner of the office instantly, tensed up all his nerves, and mobilized all his blood qi power, ready to react at any moment. Then, trying to appear calm and unaffected, he coldly asked, "Secretary Guan, is the city lord not here?" "Not here." Guan secretary walked out from the corner, manipulating the runes in the air to weave them into an even brighter complex, saying, "The city lord never stays in the office at night." Hearing this, Lin Zikin's heart sank, but he still forced a calm tone, "But Secretary Guan, you told me earlier today that the city lord wanted me to come to the office at midnight to discuss matters." "Guan secretary, the city lord didn't ask you to come, I wanted you to come." "Lin Zikin, is there something you wanted to discuss with me, Secretary Guan?" As he spoke, he used his danger perception to probe Secretary Guan's biological level. But he found nothing. This meant that Secretary Guan's biological level was far beyond his. This was bad. Lin Zikin's expression suddenly turned grave and he could no longer maintain his composure. I have nothing I want to discuss with you. Secretary Guan proceeded to drive all the runes through the air down into the ground, laying a huge mysterious array and continued, I only want to take you away from here, to send you to the Sun-Moon Sacred Land to be sacrificed to the Great Flower God. Sun-Moon Sacred Land? Upon hearing these 4 words, Lin Zikin's brow furrowed tightly. He realized something. The person in front of him, the city lord's secretary, was a traitor. Originally, I had no particular interest in you and just wanted to quietly be an insider, lurking in city number 1 waiting for the final battle to break out, to help the Sun-Moon Sacred Land take over. But you had to act too conspicuously during the day. Despite being a pure-blood human who practices the body tempering technique, you can control plants and summon divine vines. If I can successfully bring you back to the sacred land for a sacrifice to the flower god, then my identity as an insider, even if compromised, would have been worth it. After hearing all this, Lin Zikin felt a bit like dying. Every time he decided to expose his strength to get more evolution resources, he would end up being targeted by traitors who then attempted to take him down. It felt like a self-inflicted disaster. However, now was not the time for regrets. It was time to think of a way to escape. Having regained his senses, Lin Zikin burst forth with all his chi blood, rushing toward the office's exit immediately. However, when he reached the door, he found he couldn't break through no matter how hard he tried. The office door was firmly blocked by an invisible wall. Realizing escape was not an option, Lin Zikin quickly changed his strategy, gathering the chi blood in his body to his throat and shouting outside the office. The city lord's secretary is a traitor. She wants to take me to the Sun-Moon Sacred Land. Someone, help! Though calling for help was shameful for a genius, it was the only way out at the moment. Unfortunately, right after he shouted, Secretary Guan coldly said, the entire office has been sealed. You can't get out, and your voice won't carry outside. As soon as she finished speaking, she pressed the last rune into the ground. Boom! A sound like a particle burst erupted. The next instant, the mysterious array on the ground violently burst into extremely bright light. Following that, a huge flower bud broke through the soil, opening a gaping maw and lunging at Lin Zikin. Lin Zikin didn't just wait to be devoured, he used all his might to dodge the gaping maw of the flower bud. At the same time, with the thought, he instantly used Advanced Spirit and Forest Lord to try and control the attacking flower maw. However, the control failed. The flower bud, with its radiant rank and high biological level, was too superior for 8th Order Lin Zikin to control. Just as Lin Zikin was about to be swallowed whole. Swoosh! Suddenly, a sound like a flame being struck flared suddenly. Immediately afterward, Lin Zikin saw the flower bud in front of him burst into massive purple flames. Under the scorching of the purple flames, the highly ranked flower bud turned into a pile of ash scattered on the ground in an instant, utterly lifeless. Having witnessed this scene, Lin Zikin's eyes widened. What a powerful method! To instantly reduce that flower bud to nothingness. Who was it that intervened? With this question, Lin Zikin immediately enhanced his sensory perception to the maximum, searching for the presence of a third person. However, he found no one else. In the vast office, there were only him and Secretary Guan. Yet, he saw a hint of fear on Secretary Guan's face. Secretary Guan seemed to recognize that terrifying black flame. Guan Min, I never expected you to be an insider planted here by the Sun-Moon Sacred Land, especially since I watched you grow up, a deep voice emanated from the office chair. At the sound, Lin Zikin quickly looked over and then saw City Lord Qin Chuan leisurely drinking tea in the office chair. When did you come in? Guan Min turned to Qin Chuan, her face full of shock and confusion. Qin Chuan, calm as a still well, replied, I've always been in the office, never left, it's just that you two didn't perceive my presence, that's all. Guanmin, pale with fear, said, Uncle Chuan, could you let me go for old time's sake? Qin Chuan, devoid of emotion, replied, I would like to, but my hatred for traitors exceeds my affection for you. Uncle Chuan, I'm carrying your child, please. Spare my life for the sake of the child. Guanmin suddenly knelt down and pleaded. Qin Chuan looked at her belly, his voice unfluctuating, a child that is born is called a child, an unborn child is called a stillborn. As soon as these words fell, a swoosh noise resounded. Guanmin's body suddenly burst into large black flames, and before she could even make a sound, she turned to ash, dead beyond death. Lin Zikan, having witnessed the process, realized one truth. Great figures are always ruthless. Or rather, people who are not ruthless can hardly become great figures. Whether it's Qi Qingmo or the present Qin Chuan, both fit the bill. P.S. Bowl in hand, begging for monthly and recommend tickets. Chapter 428, 248. Land of Oblivion. Encounter with an alien. Earth gave birth to you and nurtured you, yet you chose to side with the alien races. This is all by your own doing. Qin Chuan looked down at the pile of ashes on the ground, his voice devoid of any emotion. The secretary, reduced to ashes, had grown up under his watch, and he was responsible for her condition, but he did not hesitate when it was time to act, deciding very decisively. Not harming the interests of Earthlings was his bottom line. Otherwise, he would even kill his own mother. Let alone someone who was merely a childhood love. The evolutionary talent you displayed during the day was so strong that it shocked me. Apart from those ancient beings who have lived countless epochs, I have never seen a more talented Earthling. Qin Chuan looked towards Lin Zikan, his gaze filled with admiration. Lin Zikan was indifferent to the praise in the conversation, listening without any emotional stirring inside him. What he cared about were the words ancient beings. So, he asked, City Lord, these ancient beings who have lived through so many epochs are. Qin Chuan replied indifferently, they are the immortal gods from the era of the gods, the ancient humans. After finishing, he added, the pavilion master of your Tianren pavilion is one of them. Lin Zikan was well aware that Qi Qingmo was an ancient human. Hearing Qin Chuan say this, he wasn't surprised. Moreover, from Qin Chuan's words, he confirmed a suspicion he had earlier. There were other ancient humans on Earth. It was these powerful beings that had kept Earth from being breached by Origin Land. By the way, City Lord, do you have any news of our pavilion master? Lin Zikan, reminded of the silent Qi Qingmo, took this opportunity to ask Qin Chuan. As the City Lord of City Number 1, Qin Chuan was likely well informed about Origin Land. If anyone knew of Qi Qingmo's whereabouts, Qin Chuan was probably one of them. Your pavilion master, she ventured alone into the southern wilderness monster realm not long ago, like a demoness, she absorbed a large number of exotic beasts, and finally forced her way into a relic, and has not come out since. Qin Chuan picked up a teacup and took a sip before continuing, a domineering powerhouse like your pavilion master is something I have never encountered before in my hundreds of years in Origin Land. The pavilion master was that fierce? Upon hearing what Qin Chuan said, Lin Zikan felt somewhat surprised, but more so, he was delighted. Having no news of Qi Qingmo for so long, he had prepared himself for the worst, worried about an accident befalling her. Now it seemed, his worries were unnecessary. Qi Qingmo was far stronger than he had imagined. So what exactly was the pavilion master's strength? Mythical level? Or some other realm? Definitely stronger than legendary level. Lin Zikan thought silently to himself. Qin Chuan picked up a teacup, poured a cup of hot tea, and placed it on the table, then addressed Lin Zikan, who was still standing. Sit down, let's chat while drinking. His voice was very calm, showing no signs of having just killed someone. And he had killed a lover who was carrying his child. It felt like the ruthlessness of an emperor. Lin Zikin pulled up a chair and sat down opposite Qin Chuan to drink tea. His expression was natural. His movements were relaxed. Not restrained at all. Qin Chuan took another sip of tea and asked, "How much do you know about your Tianren Pavilion's pavilion master?" Lin Zikin replied without hesitation, "Apart from knowing that she has lived a long time, I don't understand much else. The pavilion master is very mysterious." This statement wasn't entirely true. He knew quite a bit about Qi Qingmo. After all, during the times he had transfused blood to Qi Qingmo, they had chatted to pass time. However, any information he had about Qi Qingmo, he intended to keep to himself, unsaid. Qi Qingmo was one of his own, someone who often provided him with evolutionary resources, whereas City Lord Qin Chuan was just an irrelevant outsider. Revealing information about his own kin to an outsider was a foolish act. Even if that outsider was the guardian aligned with defending a city on Earth. Seeing Lin Zikin claim ignorance, Qin Chuan didn't press further, merely stating lightly, "Your strength is already very sufficient now. In the days ahead, you should go out and get more accustomed to the environment of Origin Land." Lin Zikin, the city lord, is right. He had already planned to do so, having previously arranged with Fu Zhou to bring him and Shen Qinghan outside the city for experience. By the way, what's the story with you and Shen Qinghan's parents? Both of you have such high evolutionary talents, why are your parents both ordinary people? Qin Chuan suddenly asked. For this question, Lin Zikin had no answer. He was strong because he was inherently exceptional. As for why Shen Qinghan was strong, it remained an unsolved mystery, unknown to anyone. "I'm not sure about that, I'm also puzzled. Even though both my parents are ordinary people, why Shen Qinghan and I have such high evolutionary talents?" Lin Zikin answered. Qin Chuan nodded, not digging deeper into the question. Because he knew, Lin Zikin himself couldn't understand the reasons behind it, and probing further had no purpose. The conversation in the office lasted for over half an hour. The topics were varied. Basically, it was Lin Zikin constantly asking questions, with Qin Chuan patiently answering. Asking about the powers in Origin Land. Asking about the ancient humans on Earth. He asked a lot, but the answers he received were superficial. The next morning, just as dawn was breaking, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan were waiting early at the city gates, ready to leave the city with Fu Zhou for training. "Lin Zi, how come there are so many traitors, even the city lord's secretary turned out to be one? This world feels very insecure." Shen Qinghan whispered, trying her best not to let the guards on the city walls hear. Chapter 429, 248, Land of Oblivion. Encounter with an alien, _2. Last night, as soon as Lin Zikin returned to the dorm, he told her that he had been attacked in the office, and the attacker was the city lord's secretary. When she heard this, she found it incredibly hard to believe. And even now, she still felt the same way. From time to time, she couldn't help but blurt out her criticisms, feeling that the situation was preposterous and it made her uneasy. Lin Zikin explained, "The current situation on Earth is somewhat hopeless, and many people believe that Earth will eventually be invaded by Origin Land. Under such circumstances, traitors naturally become more common. Lin Zi, if one day Earth really can't fend off the invasion from Origin Land, then we too should become traitors." Shen Qinghan whispered, her voice so low that it was almost silent. Lin Zikin turned his head to look at her, his expression grave as he said, "As Earthlings, we must not have this kind of thought, understand?" "I understand, I was just speaking off the cuff, don't take it seriously. Just afraid someone else might take it seriously. I know I was wrong," Shen Qinghan said in a weak voice. Seeing that she understood, Lin Zikin no longer lectured her. If one day Earth really were to fall to Origin Land, Lin Zikin felt that the idea of becoming a traitor was quite normal, understandable even. After all, the instinct of all living beings is to survive. But such thoughts should only rot inside one's heart and must never be spoken aloud, nor shown openly. Otherwise, it would be suicide. At this moment, a voice came from ahead. Ziai Chen, didn't we agree on 6 o'clock? Why are you two here so early? It was Fuzhou, accompanying a woman with a high ponytail. This lady was also a member of the alien human-level genius team. Lin Zikin had taken notice of her before, knowing that she was 25 years old, named Wu Xia, with a high-level 6th order biological level. Woke up a bit early, had nothing to do, so just came over here for a stroll. Lin Zikin said calmly. Fuzhou approached, holding Wu Xia's hand and smilingly said, "This is Wu Xia, a member of our team as well. We're a couple." He introduced her, thinking that Lin Zikin, being new around, might not know Wu Xia. "Yaja, you can just call me Ziai Chen, and you can call her King Han." In a show of courtesy, Lin Zikin introduced both himself and Shen King Han to Wu Xia. Actually, whether they introduced themselves didn't matter much. They were already very well known. Everyone in the city knew of them. Wu Xia hadn't expected Lin Zikin to be so polite and replied with a smile, "Then I will call you Ziai Chen and King Han from now on." After exchanging a few words, the group of 4 quickly set out to gain experience outside the city. Their destination encompassed all the areas around the city. Though it was called experiential training, it wasn't much different from a tour. Because of Lin Zikin's overwhelming strength, in the stable regions, he was an invincible presence. So invincible that no matter what exotic plants or beasts they encountered, it was over in the blink of an eye. Fuzhou and Wu Xia ended up acting as tour guides. Their job was just to lead the way. Starting from the wasteland directly in front of the city gate, then to the forest on the right of the city, and finally, the lake on the city's left side. Fuzhou and Wu Xia took almost half a month to take Lin Zikin and Shen King Han around these 3 areas, helping the newcomers familiarize themselves with the surroundings of the city as much as possible. "We've pretty much covered the stable areas. Ziai Chen, do you plan to go back to the city to rest and enter the dangerous areas later, or do you want to go in now?" By the lake shore, Fuzhou asked Lin Zikin. Lin Zikin didn't rush to answer but instead, turned to Shen King Han beside him and asked, "Do you want to go back and rest, or do you want to go into the dangerous area?" Shen King Han, quite indecisive, said, "I'll follow your lead." Lin Zikin told Fuzhou, "Then let's have a look in the dangerous area, just at the edge." Fuzhou, "All right, I'll take you guys in for a bit." On a normal day, he, with only a high-level 7th order biological level, would never dare to enter the dangerous area. He would only dare to venture there when teaming up with strong partners. And to his eyes, Lin Zikin was a mighty strong partner. Having Lin Zikin by his side, he believed that exploring the outskirts of the dangerous area shouldn't pose any danger. Soon, the group of 4, ever vigilant, made their way into the dangerous territory. No sooner had they entered than Lin Zikin noticed something distinctly different. The energy in the dangerous area was richer, radiating vitality everywhere. At a glance, everywhere were skyscraping giant trees and peculiar flowers and grasses, with many strangely shaped living beings in sight, as if they had entered a fantasy world filled with magic. "Lin Ziai, there are even dandelions here." Shen King Han quickened his pace towards a plant that looked strikingly like a dandelion, his face lighting up with surprise as he inspected it. Lin Zikin glanced over. What entered his sight was a plant that resembled a dandelion to a T. The only difference was that the dandelions on Earth are white, while this plant, resembling an ordinary one, was black and emitted strands of black qi, looking very odd. "Xia, I remember the flying flower grass is supposed to be purple, so why is this one black?" Fuzhou looked at the black dandelion before him, his brow furrowed in confusion. Having spent so many years in the origin land, he was quite familiar with the flying flower grass, a plant indigenous to the origin land, which in his memory was a dull purple, not the black he saw now. Wu Xia stepped forward to take a closer look, perplexity also evident in her eyes. Indeed, all the flying flower grass I've seen are purple. This is the first time I've come across one that is black. Could it be a mutated plant? Fu Zhou suddenly thought of this possibility, a hint of excitement clearly visible on his face as he spoke. After thinking for a moment, Wu Xia said, "It doesn't quite resemble one. I've seen many mutated plants before, but I've never seen any black mutated plants. Plus, look, the black qi emanating from this flying flower grass feels dead and lifeless, devoid of any vitality. It doesn't look like a mutated plant at all." After hearing Wu Xia's opinion, Fu Zhou also felt it unlikely to be a mutated plant. He then turned to Shen Qinghan and Lin Zikan and said, "Chen, Qinghan, that's not a dandelion. It might be a flying flower grass infected with some virus. We'd better not get too close, it could be dangerous." Upon hearing this, Shen Qinghan immediately stepped back several paces from the flying flower grass in front of him. Lin Zikan did not step back, he continued to examine the flying flower grass closely. His immunity to 100 poisons had not been triggered, indicating that the black qi on the flying flower grass was not poisonous. After observing for a moment, Lin Zikan ignored the flying flower grass on the ground and said to Fu Zhou and Wu Xia, "Let's keep moving further in." "Okay." Fu Zhou nodded, continuing to lead the way for Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan, familiarizing them with the outer areas of the dangerous zone. Having just taken a few steps, Lin Zikan extended his hand behind him, drew the black qi enshrouded flying flower grass into his storage space from a distance. He planned to thoroughly study this odd plant from the origin land once he was back in the city. "What's going on? Why are there so many plants surrounded by black qi?" As they continued, Fu Zhou, who was at the front, stopped and frowned. He had noticed ahead of them a patch of shrubbery, within which all the plants were covered with a deathly black qi, appearing very strange. "Let's go around," Wu Xia suggested. Encountered with black qi enshrouded alien humans. Alien humans from the land of oblivion. Soul possession. Run! But then Lin Zikan acted, defeating it with a single move. The man and his girlfriend were shocked. Then they said, "Hurry back to the city to tell. The alien humans from the land of oblivion have come out." Afterward in origin land. The story of Luo Qingxiu. Because she was an alien human, she was consistently ostracized. Once, the ostracism went too far, and Lin Zikan defended her. Suddenly, her head splitting with pain, she remembered something, a voice echoing in her mind. "Apologize to Bai Xuet. Pinky promise hang on a noose, no changing for 100 years. Just like in the second grade of elementary school." In any case, from that day on, Luo Qingxiu's memory was completely restored. She recalled why she had ended up on Earth, why she had dropped out of school to appear in origin land. Luo Qingxiu is presented as a curious baby character. For instance, she is aloof in front of others, but in front of acquaintances like Lin Zikan, Shen Qinghan, and Yuan Dongji, she often asks questions. For instance, why living beings cannot be immortal, why the Creator set a lifespan for all things. Lin Zikan, for sake of renewal, I guess. P.S. Holding out my bowl, asking for monthly passes and recommendation votes. Chapter 430, 249, Return to Earth. Meet the young sister. It's an alien from the land of oblivion. Fu Zhou looked at the man who emerged from the shrubbery, his expression unusually solemn. Wu Xia beside him was even more solemn. Wu Xia was very sensitive to death. In the strands of black aura wafting from the man, she sensed an extremely dense breath of death. Given the intensely frightening breath of death she felt, the man before her must at least have started at a rare level biological level. What place is the land of oblivion? Lin Zikan stared intently at the man, asking Fu Zhou who was beside him. Fu Zhou was sweating profusely, but he still tried to explain calmly. The origin land is divided into 5 regions, namely the Central Region, Eastern Region, Western Region, Southern Domain, and Northern Region. The region where our Earth cities are located is the Southern Domain. The origin land forces invading our Earth mainly come from the forces within the Southern Domain, such as the Sun-Moon Sacred Land. And the Land of Oblivion is a territory on the very edge of the Western Region. It's a place of deadly silence, inhabited by a large number of aliens with an odd cultivation system. The black aura this man is giving off is very telling, and he's most likely an alien from the Land of Oblivion. Fu Zhou analyzed with sound reasoning, and more or less confirmed the man's identity. Monsieur Duo, that is, the man enshrouded in black aura, laughed after listening to Fu Zhou's analysis. Not a bad analysis, I indeed come from the Land of Oblivion. What is an alien from the Land of Oblivion doing in the Southern Domain? Fu Zhou forced himself to stay calm and posed this question to Monsieur Duo. Each of the 5 domains of the origin land was independent and did not interfere with each other. Normally speaking, an alien from the Land of Oblivion wouldn't come to the Southern Domain but would stay in the Western region instead. This was somewhat unusual. Monsieur Duo replied with a chillingly cold laughter, I've come all this great distance to the Southern Domain because I have some business to deal with. But, before I take care of that, I think I need to kill you first. The instant his words fell, the black aura swirling around Monsieur Duo suddenly became extremely dense, engulfing his entire figure and rendering him invisible, forming a cloud-like, murky black fog. As the density of the fog continued to increase, soon it spread towards Lin Zikan and the others. Any living being it passed was instantly drained of its vitality, turning to ash and dissipating with the wind. Run! Realizing the terror of the black fog, Fu Zhou shouted the instant warning and started to run without waiting for his voice to echo. Wu Xia and Shen Qinghan, hearing the shout, immediately started to flee along with him. Lin Zikan didn't run, choosing instead to stay behind and delay Monsieur Duo, who was hidden in the black fog, buying time for Shen Qinghan and the others to escape. He faced the rapidly approaching black fog, his thoughts turning to use advanced spirit and forest lord to control the skyscraping giant trees within several miles around him. Roar! A tremendous sound of breaking thundered, and the entire ground beneath them quaked. Countless 100-meter skyscraping giant trees uprooted themselves, moving rapidly toward the black fog. In a very brief time, they formed an immense, impenetrable tree cage that blocked the black fog from advancing even an inch. Immediately after, buzz, 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 an ear-piercing sound of something tearing through the air arose. Inside the tree cage, numerous robust crimson vines shot out from the dense foliage, piercing rapidly into the thick black fog. Then, PFT, PFT, PFT. Sounds of flesh being pierced echoed. Standing outside the black fog, Lin Zikan could clearly feel his controlled crimson vines striking Monsieur Duo, the man from the Land of Oblivion, within the dense black fog. He was surprised to have hit the target so easily and was momentarily taken aback. But quickly, he realized his chance and, before the vines were fully corroded by the black fog, promptly launched lethal venom, a biometric attribute, inundating Monsieur Duo's body with a large dose of poison through the vines. Then, in only a few seconds, the previously intense black fog began to fade, revealing Monsieur Duo, who was hidden within it, to Lin Zikan's awareness. You, how can you control the demon vine of the Sun-Moon Sacred Land and poison me? Monsieur Duo, his face full of shock as he looked at the dense foliage around him, sounded extremely weak. He gasped for air, vitality draining from him rapidly. The venom Lin Zikan infused into him was overwhelmingly potent. Even with his biological level at the rare third-order great perfection, he felt numb all over, his chi blood in disarray, and he weakly knelt on the ground. Seeing how easily the opponent was poisoned, Linziken was also full of surprise. This was an alien with a biological level as high as rare 3rd order great perfection, and his biological level was only at high level 8th order. How could he poison the alien instantaneously? Despite the surprise, Linziken didn't stand still to give Monsieur Duo time to recover. Seeing the effective poison, he decisively controlled more vines, shooting them fiercely into Monsieur Duo's body, endlessly pumping in the venom. In the blink of an eye, Monsieur Duo was filled with venom, poison oozing from his every orifice, his complexion turning purple, looking close to the end. Linziken, seizing the opportunity provided by his illness, rapidly wrapped more crimson vines around Monsieur Duo, pulling him up into midair and binding him into a cocoon. Then, with a powerful squeeze, spurt! There was a noise like something soft being ruptured. The crimson vines wrapped around Monsieur Duo instantly tightened, compressing him into a pulp, which slowly oozed out through the gaps in the vines.